Hi everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project, and my special guest for this evening is Courtney Tester, who is Miss Intercontinental Australia. Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here today.
It's a pleasure. How has your day been in is it sunny Perth? It's been terrible over here. I've been interviewing Melburnians and their weather is nice. Sydney, it's been pouring down. What's the weather like in Perth?
It's actually beautiful and sunny today,
Uh,
but it is terribly cold. I think it was 14 degrees this morning when I was driving to the post office, but it's beautiful and sunny, but deathly cold at the moment. And that's kind of been a bit of a trend at the moment. It's been freezing cold, but there's been a little bit of sunshine here and there.
Probably not going to get much sympathy from a lot of viewers saying that 14 is deathly cold because if they're watching from the UK or the US in certain parts, and even in Sydney, it's gotten down to zero here. 14 is 14 is pretty. Is that as cold as Perth gets? I can't remember.
No, there's been the odd few days where it's gotten down to 8 degrees, and let
Oh
me tell
wow.
you, that is definitely cold. Perth people are not built for cold weather, and neither are our houses or anything along those lines. So, as soon as the cold weather comes, you will hear every single person in Perth complaining about the freezing cold weather. Even if it's 21 degrees, I'll still be complaining about it being way too cold.
I don't know who's worse, you Perth people or the Gold Coast people, because the Gold Coast people are exactly the same. I know a few people over there, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's really, really cold." It's like, "How cold?" "Oh, it's like only 20 degrees," and I'm like,
Oh,
"It's 5 degrees here, and you're complaining about 20." I didn't
oh
realize Perth people were so soft.
I think if I was to live anywhere other than Perth, I would probably pick the Gold Coast purely because I know that the climate is so beautiful and I wouldn't have to suffer the cold, horrible, rainy weather. Well, rainy.
I prefer Perth. I'm going to be shot by all the Gold Coast people. I haven't been to Perth for a while, but I really love the energy that Perth has. It's really, really laid back.
Hmm.
It's less touristy than the Gold Coast. But speaking of Perth, do you want to tell people watching a little bit about Perth because they may not be familiar with it, especially if they're watching from overseas?
Yeah, of course. So Perth is on the western side of Australia. It's got beautiful coastlines, beautiful beaches. Our Premier, Mark McGowan, has done amazing things in the community, particularly making sure that we've all been safe throughout COVID. And we've also got a lot of projects in the pipeline. I know that they're doing developments down at Elizabeth Quay and in the city in terms of the university developments as well. So there's a lot of great, exciting stuff happening in Perth, and there's been so many amazing developments, not only in the building industry, but also in the fashion industry as well. That's kind of brought Perth up into, I guess, the 21st century. Because I know for a very long time there was a lot of complaints that Perth wasn't up to the same standard as the East Coast, but having been on the East Coast in May and then coming back home, I've definitely felt the difference in terms of Perth holding its own. It's definitely a beautiful place to live, and like you say, super laid back, super chill. Definitely somewhere that I so happy that I live.
Yeah, it's a really lovely city. I've only been there twice, but I really enjoyed just the vibe of it. Courtney, we got to start with the obvious question. You have a crown on your head, and we should probably explain to the people watching why. So, pageant history. How did you get involved in the crazy world of pageantry?
Oh, it's been a long, long journey. I actually won my very first pageant title at 4 years old at a shopping centre right here in Perth. I was down, or yes, down from the country. I used to live in a small coastal fishing town, and we just happened to walk past this pageant. So my mum threw me into it just for a little bit of fun, really. I was in my favourite jeans and my best t-shirt that I could have possibly worn that day. And I was just fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time, and I won. And it wasn't until I was 16 that I again competed in another pageant where I was again fortunate enough to win the title of Miss Teen Galaxy Australia in 2013. I got to compete internationally and represent Australia over in Orlando, which was a phenomenal experience.
Mm.
And here I am now, I'm 25, and I've just, well, in 2021, I won the title of Miss Intercontinental Australia. So, I've been there, I've done it, I've been around for a while from that very first experience when I was 4, now being 25. Keep forgetting how old I am, but now I'm 25 and I've got this incredible crown and this incredible opportunity yet again to represent Australia on the international stage.
I was going to berate you about saying how old you are at the age of 25, but we'll move on. Um, do you remember anything about your first pageant? Did you have a little routine? Did you have to deliver I don't know much about 4-year-old pageants. Do you remember anything about it?
I can remember on the day there was just like a regular tea catwalk, and I had to parade around with a bunch of other girls that were also competing. There was no on stage question. I don't think my mum would have been able to talk me into it if there was one. There
Yeah.
was no on stage question, and it was really just a modelling competition. And, it was so good to not only be in it just on a complete whim, but to also win it. And I was only wearing a pair of jeans. You know, that was an excellent win for me. I think, it just shows that it wasn't necessarily about beauty. It was just about, who looked like they were having the best time of their life.
Remember the name of the title?
It was Little Miss Crowning Glory.
Oh, okay. All right. Very, very cool. Do you know what it is about Perth? Because again, for people not familiar with Perth, Perth is sort of on the complete opposite side to Sydney, Melbourne, and the Gold Coast. And it's not a town, but it's a smaller city than say Sydney or Melbourne. But it's done
Mhm.
very well in the modeling spheres. A lot of prominent models have come from Perth, and even in pageantry, a lot of the really high performing pageant girls have come from Perth. It's almost like Perth overperforms in those areas. Do you have any idea why? Is there something weird in the water? Is it the weather?
I was just going to say, we always say that there is definitely something in the water in Perth, because Perth kind of does have it's kind of renowned for pulling out of the bag these amazing, incredibly
Hmm.
and talented people. I mean, if we look at, Heath Ledger, my perfect example, someone that
Hmm.
studied at WAPA, which is the WA Academy of Performing Arts, and then what later went on and had an incredible career. So it's definitely something in the water. I think there's definitely a focus on performing arts, and the media industry is continuing to grow and develop, which I'm really happy and excited about to see those changes come to fruition in the future.
I'll have to get you to bring some Perth
Some
water.
water over.
Yeah, well, Alicia is going over to Galaxy. I'll get her to, rather than taking over Vegemite, which is of no use to anyone, I'll get her to bring some Perth water. We had this ongoing battle about Vegemite. I mean, you might as well weigh in. Where do you
Yes.
sit on the Vegemite? Your yes.
It would be un-Australian to not like Vegemite. I absolutely adore Vegemite. In fact, I had Vegemite this morning for breakfast.
Ugh. Well, I'm sorry for sighing, guys, but I've made my feelings about Vegemite quite well known. I'm a terrible Australian, Courtney. What's your favorite way to have Vegemite? Just on toast with a bit of butter? Do you go avocado? What's the go?
On toast, lots of butter, smaller amount of Vegemite, and sometimes I might even sprinkle on a little bit of feta cheese for an extra added bit of
Oh.
salt, even though it's already so salty. But I just love that.
I might be game enough to give that a go. The added extra feta cheese might hide the taste of the Vegemite, so I'd give that a go. You are now Miss Intercontinental Australia, and you won that a couple of years back, if I'm correct, because we've obviously with COVID been. Look, do you want to tell the story of how you got involved in the system, your crowning moment, and then obviously some of the difficulties we've had with getting you overseas?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So I competed in May 2021 and was fortunate enough to win the title over in the Gold Coast of Miss Intercontinental Australia. It was there when the preparations really kicked off, and I was preparing to head over to compete at the international pageant last year.
Mhm.
In terms of all of the COVID restrictions, it was incredibly difficult not only to send me out of the country, but also for me to return safely to the country, because there was, especially coming from WA, we had incredible lockdowns and we
Yeah.
were really tight and strict with our security on that front. So it was, I'm so thankful that my directors were able to take my own health and put that first and foremost. And we made the really tough decision to not compete at the 2021 final. But fortunately, I've been lucky enough to be allowed to compete at the 2022 final, which will be held later on this year. So it's kind of been a really long whirlwind, and I guess the toughest part of the process has been the waiting game, but I'm super excited to be finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Can't imagine really what it feels like. We must have been through a whirlwind of emotions. Do we have the host city for the international finals?
We don't have the host city officially announced yet at all. We know that it's predicted to be around October. That's what we've seen from the socials.
Okay.
But in terms of the host city, it's still unknown.
I hope it's not somewhere in Europe, because at that time, if you're complaining about 15 or 20, you'll be lucky if it's not minus 15 or minus 20. In which case, how will you deal as Miss Intercontinental Australia if they send you somewhere where it's under freezing?
I think I'd have to get some high quality thermals and some of those little hand warmer packets and make sure I've got them wherever I went. And I'm sure I'd be able to tough it out.
I actually am not hugely familiar with the intercontinental system. I mean, I've seen the name, I know it exists, but I haven't interviewed many of its title holders or its queens. So, can you give me some, and the people watching also, some background? Obviously, you've represented Galaxy, I'm very familiar with Galaxy. The intercontinental system, what does it tend to stand for that sets it apart from, let's say, other systems, some of which you've already competed in?
Yeah, so the intercontinental system is really based on the idea of women having a power of beauty. So, the power of beauty and what that really means, particularly to all us competitors. I think we've all got our own unique power in our beauty. I like to think that my power is promoting causes that I'm passionate about, being mental
Hmm.
health and education equality. I also like to think that my beauty power is making sure that we see lots of diversity in the modelling and the pageant industry, and continuing to see those developments will mean that there's a greater diversity in all of the winners that will come.
Is there any particular diversity, let's say in pageantry, is there any particular diversity that you would like to see more? Would you like to see more women of color? Would you like to see, let's say, more acceptance of different body types or different heights or different ages?
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I am 163 centimeters, so I am a short woman. And I think that, every woman is beautiful. There's no reason why there should be a height requirement for any pageant.
Hmm.
So that is probably my first and foremost one. And I would also love to see women of all different shapes and sizes, because as we know, there is no one size fits all beauty. It's more about what we're promoting and what we're passionate about and how we go about being a queen. That's probably the biggest value that we can add.
And what do you feel the biggest sort of qualities of a queen should be, at least to you, like on a personal level? What do you feel it's most important to sort of how to represent your system?
Yeah. Personally, for me, it's just being authentic and
Hmm.
continuing to align myself with authenticity and promoting things again that I'm passionate about. If I'm promoting mental health and education equality, I am automatically going to have a million and one ideas and topics that I can talk about and things that I want to do and see in the future. Authenticity is a really big one.
Hmm.
It shines through, and if you're authentic, you're confident, and if you're confident, you're beautiful. It just kind of all stems from that for me.
Do you feel that us Aussies may have an advantage in the authenticity stakes? I mean, all the international people seem to think we're pretty laid back and authentic, easygoing, friendly. Would you agree with them?
100%. I think overall, in terms of the Australians' outlook, we are definitely laid back, easy going, go with the flow. I like to think that I'm like that, but at times I'm definitely a micromanager, over organized, but like to think that I'm always go with the flow.
Well, I mean, I mean, you're a teacher by profession. Is part of the need to micromanage the fact that you work as a teacher and you do need to micromanage the little ones?
I'm now thinking maybe that's part of the reason why I became a teacher, so that I could micromanage all day. Yeah, I
Okay.
guess, of course, like being a teacher, I've got to be super organized. I've got to be on my toes. And as I explain it to people, being a teacher is like performing 24/7. As soon as you step into the classroom, you're entertaining, 20 to 30 children in the room, and you've got to maintain their attention all day. So, yeah, definitely, definitely.
It's really, really interesting you mentioned that. How old are the children that you work with?
The kids I work with are 7 and 8 years old, so they're in year two
Ooh.
here in Perth. So they are old enough to think that I am incredible, but not so old that they have an attitude, or they think that they're too cool to be at school.
As I told you before we went live, I've worked quite a lot with kids as a tennis coach, and the 7 to 8s. It's so interesting to me that you say you have to sort of be performing all the time, because that's what I would always tell the coaches that were working underneath me, some of whom were only sort of 15, 16. It was their first job sort of out of school, and they'd work with these kids and they would find it so exhausting. Um, and they would have to resort to basically blackmail, to be giving them lollies to get them to behave, and I would not let them do that. But just talk about the importance of being entertaining, because a lot of people have bad memories about school, like teachers being really boring, or just the class itself, like, oh my god, math was so boring, etc., etc. How important is it? How important is entertainment to education?
I mean, I think as part of entertainment, it comes with creating a positive and empowering learning experience. And basically, all that means is a fancy way of saying that making sure that the learning is engaging and it's
Yeah,
interesting for the kids. That's pretty much what my premise is. Part of the reason why I became a teacher is because I had an incredibly positive experience in my own primary education years. I had incredible teachers that were really passionate about making sure that the school environment was positive, that it was fun, that it was exciting. And I really hope that that's exactly what I'm doing for my kids. We're coming up with, incredible experiences. Like we made scones last term, and, we're going to be going out and visiting some cultural sites as well towards the end of the year. So I'm hoping that what I'm doing at the moment is exciting enough to keep the kids engaged, but to also fuel their want and their need to continue their learning.
yeah. I wish I'd made scones when I was in school. That'd be a lot more exciting than anything that I had to do. Although it's been a while since I was in school. Do the teachers, just out of interest, how do they refer to you? Is it Miss? Is it Courtney? Is it Miss Tester? Is it Ma'am?
Typically, it's Miss Tester. I haven't had them. I do often get Mrs. Tester, but I do have to remind them that that's not me. That's my mum. Not necessarily heard of. Haven't heard Miss Courtney yet. But I think I'll stick to Miss Tester. It's got a nice ring to it.
It does. It does. I don't think I've actually met anyone who had the surname of Tester. That's a first. Do you see yourself working with that age group for the foreseeable future? Do you have any desire to maybe work with different age groups? Because I got to say, like, working with the 7 to 8 is very different. Obviously, not better or worse, but working with teenagers, for example, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But are you dialed in on the 7 to 8 year old age group?
Yeah, I think I definitely enjoy teaching that age group, particularly because I also like the content that is
Mhm.
involved in teaching year twos. It's the most interesting to me. I probably wouldn't go any older than year three. I do generally relate a lot better to the children that are in the early childhood years or the early years. So that's anywhere
Mhm.
from pre primary or kindergarten, but pre primary to year two. That's probably my target audience, just because they're malleable, they're super interested and intrigued in learning.
Mm.
And again, the content for me, as part of being a teacher, you have to enjoy what you're doing. And
Oh yeah,
I enjoy teaching that year level.
yeah. And you mentioned education equality. So can you expand on that a little bit? So when you say education equality, what exactly are you referring to?
Yeah, so what I'm referring to is, I mean, statistically, there are over 70 million children worldwide that don't actually have access to a primary education. And what that means is that if they're not having access to a quality education as a child, then that usually means that in their older years, they are going to be illiterate or they're going to struggle. They might go
Mm.
through poverty. And the flow on effect is just, it's endless. So if we have education equality, globally, and if we see a greater impact in terms of all children being able to access a quality education, then we'll see a decrease in the poverty lines, and we'll also see greater diversity in our leadership.
Yeah, it's terrible when you see some countries that actively don't want some of, well, I'm thinking of the Taliban, for example, not wanting the women to receive an education.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see that, how does that make you feel? Because it certainly evokes a very strong response from myself.
Yeah, I think it's tough, particularly because we know how much the women in the country had gained from so many
Exactly.
years of all
Yeah.
of the intervention that had been going on in the country. It's definitely heartbreaking, and I hope that there are changes, and I
Mm.
hope that the women see some kind of hope. And I also just hope that they can make changes and get out of there and seek their own education somewhere that they're going to be safe and be able to do so.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, you have a question here from a familiar face, a certain Ms. Rankin. Um, I have to ask this question and then say Brooke at the end. So, hey, Sister Queen, you're incredible. What attributes do you think are going to make you stand out at internationals? Lots of love, Brooke.
Oh. I did see the interview with adding Brooke at the end, and I think I am going to be adding Brooke at the end of every single conversation that I have with Brooke,
Good on
just
you.
from now on. What attributes do I hold that are going to make me stand out at internationals? I think my confidence. I am generally quite a confident person, although I do technically classify myself as an introvert.
Mm.
I would hope that I'm a talker. I think I could talk the house down and hopefully could have a conversation with anyone. But also, I really appreciate everyone, not only the competitors or whoever else that I'm going to be with. I kind of appreciate, the staffing or, the cleaners. You've got to kind of show appreciation for everyone. And I hope that my overall laid back Australian attitude will kind of make me shine in that aspect.
Well, you're probably also a bit easier to understand than some Australian queens. Your accent isn't too strong, and you
Not
don't
too strong.
speak too quickly. You mentioned being an introvert and then also being confident. Now, to me, that's not a mismatch because the two are completely different. You can be introverted and still be very confident. But I'm just curious as to the development of your confidence because a lot of girls will say that pageantry helped with that.
Mhm.
Does your confidence, were you always confident, even going back to, 4 years old at your first pageant, or was that something you developed through your pageantry or something that you developed more on your own time, on your own path?
I think a bit of both. I think the confidence that I've gained from pageants has been immense, especially competing, internationally at only 16. That kind of reshaped my life and redirected where I was headed. I also think that it's also just come from being older and wiser. The more confidence that I have gained is mainly because I've gotten more confident in my speaking abilities and being able to hold conversations really well with people. And again, I'm an educator, so I spend all day talking. So I want to hope that I have some kind of confidence in that aspect.
Brooke here has said, you guys are cruel. Well, Brooke, that's what happens when you announce those things on an interview. I'm trying not to put Brooke at the end of every sentence, but I can't promise you anything. Outside of pageantry, I mean, obviously you're a teacher by trade. What do you do to keep yourself busy or to relax? I mean, because God knows you'd need it after working with kids, you know. I mean, you're on school holidays, as you said, at the moment. But what do you do outside of pageantry and outside of being a teacher?
So, outside of pageantry, generally I like to keep fit with something simple like Pilates. I'm not a huge gym junkie because I've got to make exercising fun for me to be able to enjoy it. I have also recently taken up or re-gone and gotten back into tap dancing, which is something that I
Hmm.
did many, many moons ago when I was a child. So it's been great to get back into that and engage my brain, but also have a little bit of fun at the same time. Because I found that spending all day at school, talking to kids all day long, I kind of need a different avenue to
Yeah.
switch off, but use my brain in a different way. And of course, I mean, spending time with family and friends and my dogs is most important to me. I've got a huge family and they're all super important to me. I've got four nieces and four nephews. So
Wow.
spending time with them is incredible.
And I don't normally ask about fashion choices, but I need to ask you about your earrings because they're absolutely stunning. So, is this just something that you've picked up yourself, or can we do a subtle sponsor shout out? I mean, they are an amazing color.
Yeah, so these ones are, of course, the Bejeweled Boutique. It wouldn't be a pageant interview or anything pageant related if it wasn't the Bejeweled Boutique. So, shout out to the Bejeweled Boutique. Thank you. I do love the colour. I didn't know if the colour was going to be for me, but I love them either way.
They look absolutely stunning. And I say that as someone who doesn't normally notice these things. I'm like, oh wow, that blue. I don't know. Maybe it's a whole outfit working with the black and then the blue and then the crown. The crown is also, now that I'm actually looking at it, it looks simple, but in a really good way. It's not like over the top, but it's really eye catching. Is it
Yeah.
comfortable? I often
It,
ask people how they deal with the constant crown headaches, and some people said, "Well, you just deal with it." Is it comfortable?
I mean, surprisingly, yes. I mean, I haven't had too many crown headaches, which has
Yeah.
been amazing. Uh, hopefully, there's no more in the foreseeable future.
You don't? Do you have dents in your head? Because some of the girls have said their crowns have been so heavy they actually have little divots in their skull where the crown can fit.
Not yet. I do have a very, very small head, so I think they just tend to fit me really well, so they're not too tight.
Okay. All right. And as you mentioned that the international competition should be around October sometime. Obviously, you've had an up and down sort of preparation with COVID and things like that. At this stage, Courtney, do you have any expectations as to what you'd like to or how you'd like to place over there? Or are you just going to, enjoy yourself, have a good time, and represent Australia as best you can?
Yeah, of course. I mean, my premise for any competition is to enjoy myself to the absolute most. If I can get anything out of any pageant experience, it's just to purely enjoy it. If I could make the top 10, I would be immensely happy. It is incredibly difficult to place in the intercontinental system. The
Mhm.
way that the placing is done is we are placed via continents. So there's only
Right,
a certain amount of competitors that will go through to the top 10 out of each continent, and then the top five come from one of each continent. So
right.
it's tricky to place. I would be super grateful if I was able to make the top 10. But again, I'm just happy to finally be able to be involved in the international pageant and just excited to represent Australia.
Dare I ask what continental grouping we're in? Because we're normally lumped in with Asia Pacific, which then includes Philippines,
Uh
Vietnam,
huh.
Thailand.
Uh
That
huh.
that
Uh huh.
it's like the valley of pageant death. It's like
Yes,
you know
yes.
what?
So we're
If you get through to top 10, you're probably a shoe in for top five. Let's just put that out there.
yeah. So we are definitely grouped in as Asia and Oceania. So we're definitely up there with all the other powerhouses. As we know, Asia is renowned
Mhm.
for their powerhouse of pageant women. So, as I say, if I could make the top 10, I would be forever grateful.
Okay. Well, you got your work cut out for you, but hard work. Never underestimate the little Aussie battler. That's what I say.
Exactly.
Uh, Now, before we get to the final 10, Courtney, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to?
Ooh, shout outs. I would like to give a shout out to all of my Miss Australia pageants sisterhood. That includes Danica, that includes Brooke, that includes any of the other girls, Mel, that includes our current Miss Galaxy Australia, Emily Egan. That includes all of the other Galaxy queens that are so amazing. Alicia, Chantel, incredible. Shout out to my mum if she's watching. Hope you're watching, mum. Hi, mum, if you're watching. she's up north at the moment. She's about 2,000 kilometers up north. So
Wow, okay.
hope she's watching, and I hope she's having a great day.
You want to give a shout out to your class, your little kidlets?
Yes, shout out to room 3. Hope you're all watching, and I hope you're all proud of Miss Tester.
Do they know that you're a pageant queen? Have they ever seen you with your crown and sash?
They've seen it, and they've definitely asked questions about it, but I don't think they've quite clicked of the severity of it, that it's a national pageant and that I'll be competing internationally.
Do they ask you, Miss, are you a princess? Do you get that
100%.
question?
100%.
It's always that one. And what do you how do you answer that when they ask you, are you a princess?
I'll just say, yeah, kind of.
Yes, of course. I mean, what else? Okay, let us get to the final 10. Danica here has said, we love you, Court. So there you go. Final 10. All right, here we go. Question 1. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, gazebo.
Why?
It's just fun to say. It's just gazebo. It's just rolls off the tongue. It's just fun.
I've never had that one, and that is actually that's a weird word. Now that I think of it, gazebo. Gazebo. Okay. Question 2. What is your least favorite word?
Least favorite word, probably something like disgust. Like not really interested in the word disgust, nor do I use it very often.
Fair enough. Question 3. In life, what gets you excited, or what turns you on?
What gets me excited? Any kind of freshly baked goods out of the oven. They get me excited. Anytime I see any of my family members, that will get me incredibly excited. Anytime I see a sale in any kind of store, or I feel like I'm getting a discount or a bargain, that definitely gets me excited.
How does your love for baked goods intersect with pageant preparation?
Goes incredibly well.
Really?
As long as I am exercising and doing everything else that I need to do, I see no reason why I can't have beautiful baked goods.
Good for you. So that was what turns you on. Question 4 was what turns you off?
Lying. Definitely don't like lying or deceit. And what else turns me off? Anything that's not clean or messiness drives me absolutely crazy.
Suddenly feel sorry for your kids. Do you ever yell at them to clean up after themselves? Because 7 and 8-year-olds are not by nature normally the tidiest beings on the planet.
Funnily enough, we had a debate with one of the other classes, and all of the kids, one of the positives about our classroom was they loved that it was organised and that it was clean, which meant that it was so much better than all of the other classrooms. So I actually can take my hat off to all of the kids because they are, in general, really organised and really tidy.
I think you may have whipped them into shape, Courtney. It sounds like they've become an extension of yourself. They're organised and tidy.
Yes, I think so. They're all a very small version of myself.
Sounds like you run a tight ship, Miss Tester. Question 5. What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise? I do like the sound of the ocean, or I do also like the sound of the lawn being mowed. I don't know why.
Oh, someone answered that was their least favourite sound, so I guess we're getting a range of answers here. Question 6. What sound or noise do you hate?
Well, they don't actually have them anymore, but nails on a chalkboard, ooh, can't stand it.
What boards do you guys use, just out of interest? Are you all onto smart boards now?
Yes, we've got a smart board. We do still have whiteboards in the
Hmm.
classroom, and mini whiteboards are super essential for all of the kids, but
Yeah,
interactive whiteboards is pretty much the way to go.
nice. Question 7. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Ooh, if I could have one superpower, what would it be? I feel like being incredibly fast. What would that superpower be called? But whatever that
Super
is,
speed?
super
We'll call
speed.
it super
I
speed.
need super speed. I could get so many things done in a day. It would be incredible.
Help you keep up with the 8-year-olds. Question 8. What job or occupation other than your own would you most like to attempt?
If I wasn't doing teaching, I actually had this same conversation. Yeah, was it yesterday? Yesterday, at a baby shower. And if I wasn't being a teacher, I would be something creative, possibly in like digital marketing or media, something that I could still be creative and artsy.
And what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Job that I would definitely not like to attempt. Probably a vet. Even though I love animals, I definitely could not cope with any of the hardship that comes along with being a vet.
Yeah. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
What would I like God? Welcome home, honey.
You've made God sound very very extra. I don't think God ever used the word honey before, but that's fair enough. Well, Courtney, that's about it. Thank you so much for your time and coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while and a bit of a process to get together, but it's been
Mm.
great.
Has this actually been your first live? You said your first live. Do you mean first live interview or just first live ever?
I think my first live ever. I don't think I've ever been live. I think any other. Well, no, I don't think so. I think any other interview has been pre-recorded.
Now you sound 1,000 years old. You've never been live before.
I've never been live. Don't tell anyone. I think that's how you know that I'm a 90s baby.
Well, I mean, I won't tell anyone, but I think you might have. But look, thanks for coming on. I'll get you to hang on the line whilst I hang out with the audience. So thanks to everyone for watching live on the replay, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.
Awesome. No worries. See you later.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open. So if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there and see you in the next video.